Hello and welcome back. You're watching Selenium Express and this is the fourth video of my Hello Spring Boot series. So as you guys know, the main intention of this series is to make you realize the features of Spring Boot. So most of the time when we have to develop something in Spring Boot, what we basically do, we go to the Spring Initializer website, download the Spring Boot project and start creating our application on top of that. And we never really appreciate Spring Boot. And this series basically built to appreciate Spring Boot features that it basically provides. And that's why we are creating a project from scratch, which is a normal Maven project, and step by step we are building it and making it a Spring Boot project. Now, one thing you might notice, whenever you download a Spring Boot project from Spring Initializer website, the basic template it gives you, it is going to give you a file called application.properties file, which basically stays under source main resources folder. And most of us, maybe I'm just saying most of us, I'm sure some of the beginners may be watching this particular series. So maybe you might know this thing or you might not know this thing, that this application.properties file loads automatically, and that's why I call it magic file. So if you are very new to this particular application.properties file and you don't know how it gets loaded, well, we'll be finding it in this particular video. But the intention of this particular video is going to make you realize how Spring Boot basically deals with this application.properties file and why I'm basically calling it as a magic file, and how Spring Boot basically detects this file. And is this the only place where we can place the application.properties file? What I mean by that is source main resources is the only folder where we can place that application.properties file, which will be automatically detected by Spring Boot. Can I create a ABC folder in my desktop, and can I load my application.properties file from there? Yes, so all these things we're going to be exploring in this video. How Spring Boot detects the application.properties file, what are the different locations where basically Spring Boot tries to find this particular file when it bootstraps, right? And how can we start a Spring Boot project using command line by passing in the application.properties file if it doesn't exist inside our class path. Lot of questions we're going to be exploring in this particular videos, and that's the aim. Right? So let's quickly go and complete this easy and straightforward video, and I hope that you'll be finding it helpful. And if you are liking this videos, then make sure that you are subscribing to my channel, you are liking this video, you are sharing this video to your friends, and also just consider subscribing, because that's going to help me a lot and I can make more videos for you guys like this. Okay. Hi, my name is Abhilash and you are watching Selenium Express. Without wasting any time, let's roll the intro. I want to ask you a question, and the question is very simple. Let me just close this file and let me just clean all my console and everything. My question is going to be very simple. The question is, if I want to run this application in a port number 9095, then how I'll be doing it? You will say, okay, Abhilash, it's going to be very straightforward. You just now told there are two options. The first option is, whenever I'm launching my jar, I will just use this java jar command, and I will be just giving server.port, and I'll be basically providing my server port that I want to run. Okay, this is the option number one. The option number two, if you are launching your application through IDE by doing run as and run configuration, if you want to do that, then you can just go to go to your Spring Boot application that you are basically creating, and you can go to the program argument and you can specify the server.port number over here. But what if I want to tell you that I don't want to basically give my server.port over here. I do not want to pass any arguments right over here whenever I'm launching my app. What I want, whenever I want to launch this app, I want it to run on port number 9095. Then you're going to say, okay, Abhilash, I know right now the default port will be selected, and the default port of the Tomcat is 8080, and by default this is configured. And if you want to override this property, if you want to change the behavior of your Spring Boot application, then you have to configure it externally by setting some arguments, and those arguments will be taken by the Spring Boot application whenever we are launching the Spring Boot application, and it will be taken through the arguments that we have inside the main method. And we already spoke about it, but I really don't want you to do it. And now I will tell you another way, and this is one of the very frequent way, and this is also a way that people uses the most. And basically for that you have to create a file, and that file I call it a magic file. So the magic file you have to create inside the source main resources folder. So you have to go to the source main resources folder, and you have to create a magic file over here. I'm just calling it as a magic file. Why is that? The file name I will give is application.properties. Okay. So look at the extension .properties, and this is one of the most important thing, and the file name should be application. Okay, so application.properties file I'm creating in my resources folder, and I'm calling it a magic file. Why? Let me tell you that. So inside this application.properties file, let me just write something called server. A lot of option will automatically come over here. I'm going to choose an option called server.port, and I want to set the port as 1995. And look at the magic right now. The moment I'm going to write 1995 or 1996, let me just stop this. Let me restart my application. So I will start my application from here right now. I'll click on start. So this is the boot dashboard. From here also I can start my application. Now look at that. The application has started on port number 1996. Yes. So how it is happening? How this application.properties file is automatically get picked up. Whatever I have written here, that automatically got configured by Spring. Now here is the important thing. If you are writing any file over here named application.properties, that will be automatically picked up. And that's why I called it a magic file. You don't have to load this file in order to change the behavior of your application. This file is getting picked up by Spring Boot automatically. Okay, so in my source main resources folder, now inside this application.properties file, I have a key and value pair. The key is server.port and the value is 1996. So this server.port is a system specific key that the Spring Boot has provided to me. So if you're going to go ahead and write Spring, you can see there are a lot of, authentications are coming over here. And all these properties Spring Boot people has created for us so that we can use it and can change the system behavior. Just the way we're using the server.port and defining the value as our wish, which is 1996, which is changing the default port of the Tomcat server. One good thing to notice here is that only using this server.port properties, I'm able to change the default port of the Tomcat without having any code changes. So the code that the Spring Boot people has written is internally reading this property, taking the value that we have configured and changing the behavior of the port number of the Tomcat accordingly. So not only the system specific properties like server.port, we can also write our own properties. For an example, I can also write here called myapp.name. Let's say myapp.name is Selenium Express. Let's say my application name is Selenium Express, and I have defined it using this property called myapp.name. So this is the key and this is the value. This key that I have created randomly. Can I write only name here? Yes, you can also write only name equal to Selenium Express. But it's always good to specify something like myapp.name, right? So that you can specify different properties regarding your application. So you can say myapp.version is equal to 1.0. Let's say myapp.description. You can just write learning management platform, and you can just keep on defining your own properties. But let me stick into my app.name for now, and let's say I have set it to Selenium Express. Now how I can use this value in my code right now, and how my code can read this particular value from this particular properties. Okay, let's find it out. So first of all, let's go to source main Java. Let me go to one of my packages, and right here I'll create a new class. And let's say I have a class called my app. Okay, and inside this my app, let's say I have a property. Let's say private string application name, app name, right? And to set and get the property, I have given the accessor by creating the getter and setter over here. So I'll create the getter and setter for app name. Right now, let's say I want to set this app name. So how can I set it? I can set it like this. I can inject the value for this app name by using the add value annotation. If you are coming from my Spring Core course, then this will be very easy for you. You know that you can inject the properties to this variable by using this add value annotation, and you can basically write anything inside it. Let's say I'm gonna say the app name is SELEXP, stands for Selenium Express. Now this add value will inject this value called Selenium Express or SELEXP to this particular app name. You can just do a Control S and you can taste it. So to use the add value annotation and to inject this property to this particular variable, you need to make sure that this need to be a component. So I'm going to write a component right now. So now Spring will create the object for my app, and also whenever it is creating the object, it will inject the value for this variable as SELEXP. So now let's just taste it out. So I'll go to my main starter app. So I'll go to my run method. The run method will return me an application context or in container. I'm going to save this as container. All right. Now I'm going to ask the container that, hey container, could you please get me the bean for my app? I'll store the object in a local variable. Now let's just try to fetch the value from this my app. So I'm sure that whenever Spring would have created this my app object, as I'm asking for it from the container, so Spring would have created this object, and inside this object I have a value defined for the app name, right? So I'm going to say my app.get app name, and obviously this get app name will get me the application name, and the application name is right now Selenium Express or SELEXP. So now I will go to the starter app one more time, and I'm going to be printing it. So I'm going to say sysout, and I'll wrap this up. So I can say the application name is, then whatever the name that I've set over there. So let's just run this application. So I can just do a right click, run as Spring Boot application. And here you go. You can see the application name is right now SELEXP. So my values are getting injected for this particular property is called app name. So if you can go over here and you can just change it to SELEXP123, and if you're going to relaunch it, then this property would have injected to this, and this is what you're going to be getting over here. Now the thing is that I do not want to alter the value right over here whenever I want to change the value for my app name. Rather than that, I want to read it from an external properties file, so that whenever I have to change this value, I don't have to change it from my code rather than the properties file. So right here, the my app.name, I have specified it as Selenium Express, the complete, the full form of the Selenium Express, right? But here is, right now here, it was SELEXP123. So this is what the value which we're reading right now. So now let's just say, instead of reading the value or hard coding the value right here inside the add value annotation, I want to read it dynamically so that I can read the value from the properties file. So I can give a $sign over here right now, and inside this I can go to the application.properties file right now, and I can copy this name. Control C this, I will go to my app right now and paste the value right here. Okay, so now this my app.name, we are reading it dynamically. So I have started it with a $sign with a curly brace, right? Let's see right now what is going to happen. If I relaunch the application right now, so let's see my application name, and as you can see, it's Selenium Express right now. We are reading this particular property value from this property key called my app.name, and this I have defined it over here. Okay, let's say I'm gonna say Selenium Express ESTD 2015, Control S. Let's relaunch it. Let's see if my program can read the value from the properties that I have modified, and here you go. The Selenium Express ESTD 2015. So we are reading the value really well from the properties file. Alright, so as I have told you guys right now, we can read our properties from a properties file, and this application.properties file, which is inside my source main resources folder, it is automatically getting loaded by Spring Boot and we don't have to load it. So the question is right now, what about I will create a property file called abc.properties. Okay, now this is also a properties file, right? So what about if I'll move my properties, let's say my app.name, this property, I'll cut it. Okay, I'll come to the abc.properties and I'll paste it over here. Now this is also a properties file. I'm following the extension .properties here and defining my key and value pair, which is my app.name is the key and this is the value. Now the question is that if I will go ahead to my starter app, and if I'll start my application, whenever I'll be getting the app name will be fed from this particular properties. And now this key is not available inside the application.properties file, which will be automatically loaded. Now let's see what is going to happen if I'll start this application. I'm sure that right now the application will give me a problem and it won't start. So if I'll start this, okay, we're having the problem and you can see the error, could not resolve the placeholder my app.name in value from this, right? So it is not able to read that particular properties. You can see error creating the bean name called my app. That means it is not able to create the bean for this my app. This component bean cannot be created. This object cannot be created because this value cannot be injected. So let's see. Is that the error? Injection of the AutoWare dependencies fell. So it is not able to inject this particular properties because it is not finding it. Okay. So now what I can do here, I can say, okay, this property, you have to look inside a different file. And what is that file name? Called abc.properties. Now this properties file will not be automatically loaded. And for this, what we can do, we can go to our starter app, and here we can use a special annotation called @properties_source. Okay, @properties_source, and right here we can give our property name. I can just do copy, Control-C on this. I'll go here and inside this I'll paste it. Okay, so now why I have pasted this property source information right here, because this starter app, I'm using it as a configuration file. As I have said, the starter app is already having the Spring Boot application, which is by default making this application a configuration file. You can see we already have a Spring Boot configuration annotation annotated with this particular class. You can also create a different configuration file, and you can annotate with @configuration and also with @properties_source with a similar line. Okay, that will also work, but I will not do that. I'll just write property source over here and I'll relaunch my application. Now the first thing you can see, Selenium Express ESTD 2015. This is my application name. So we are successfully able to read the properties from abc.properties file, which is right here. And also this application.properties file is by default getting loaded. So if that's the case, the application would have started in 1996. So if I'll go over here and look at that, the application has started in 1996. All right. So not only this, you can also create your own folder right here like this. Let's say I'm creating a folder called my props. I'll do a finish and I'll move this abc.properties to here. Okay, now if I'll relaunch my application, it won't work. Again, you're going to be getting the same error that the abc.properties file cannot be opened because it does not exist. And obviously right now your starter app is going to complain that, okay, failed to parse the configuration class. Okay, so now we have to go to our starter app, and right here we can say that this abc.properties file is inside the my props folder. So I can say my props / abc.properties, right? Let's just do a save and let's relaunch this application, and it's working good right now. Okay, and to be very specific, you can also write class path : then you can write my props / abc.properties. That means inside the class path, inside the source main resources, you have a folder called my props, and inside that you have this particular properties file called abc.properties file. And let's say if you don't have this folder, you can also move it like this. Okay, you can delete this my props folder like this. Okay, and right now you can go to the starter app and you can just say my props folder is right now not there. You can just say class path : abc.properties. You can just write abc.properties, that will also work, or you can just write class path : abc.properties. If you're going to relaunch this, now this will also work fine. All right. Okay, now let's go a step further, and I'm going to be showing you a few things right now. First of all, let me remove this property source from this. I will go to my abc.properties. I'll cut this. I'll paste it inside my application properties right now, and I will just close all the classes, right? And this abc.properties file right now, I'll completely delete. So delete this and do OK and do continue. All right. So we have all our things set up right now. And also I don't think my application will complain to start. So if I'll go to my starter app right now, and if I'll launch this, this will work fine, I feel. Yes, this is starting good. You can see your property name, and this is up in port number 9096. Now let's just come to my question. My question is right now, just have a guess if I'm going to close everything. Okay. If I'll go to my resources folder, and in this folder, if I'll create a new folder, and if I'll call it ABC, and if I'll do finish, and if I will put or drag this properties file inside the ABC folder, right now the application.properties file inside this ABC folder. Now my question is, if I'll relaunch my application, do you think it will start? Obviously, it will not start. And you can see right now, there is a problem. Error creating the bean name for my app. So my app bean cannot be created because the injection for the AutoWare dependency fell. The same error because that particular properties is not getting injected. This app name is not getting injected from this, right? And the problem that we are having right now, this properties file that we are having, this is not getting loaded by Spring Boot because this is moved to a different location inside a ABC folder, and it is not inside the source main resources. So what you got to understand from here, that the application.properties is going to be under source main resources, only then the Spring Boot will load it automatically. Now my question is, if I'll change this ABC to, if I'll refactor the ABC folder to config, okay, and if I'll move this application.properties file inside the config folder, right? Now, if I'll go to the config folder, I have this application.properties file. Now, do you think if I'll relaunch my application, Spring Boot will detect my application.properties file? Let's see. And yes, it is. It is detecting. Now, here is the important thing. Whenever you are keeping your application.properties file inside the config folder, Spring Boot is going to detect your application.properties file and look at the configuration that it has configured your application accordingly based on the properties file. So the properties file will be loaded if it is inside a folder called config, and if you're keeping your properties file inside that. So to take away from this, the properties file will automatically load it if it is inside a folder called config inside source main resources, or if it is directly placed under the source main resources. Even though you don't have any config file, then also your properties will be loaded. So This is the point to note, right? Okay. And now one thing I want to show you right now. Let me just close this, and if I'll just go over here, and if I'll build my application, if I'll just go and just do a maven, run as maven install. If I'll install my maven application, and if I'll create a fat jar out of my project, now it is going to create a the jar plugin will create a jar for me. And this is the jar that I have. Can I go inside it? Can I go to properties? Go inside that folder. That's called Hello Spring Boot. Go inside it and go to the target folder. And this is the jar that we just have created at 2:28 p.m. And you can see right now it is 2:29 p.m. Okay, so right now if I will unzip this jar using this unarchiver. If you're using Windows, use 7-zip to unzip this jar. You can see this is the file that we got out of this jar. If I go inside this file, if I'll go to boot.inf, you'll find the classes, and you can see your application properties file is inside this boot.inf folder. Inside this classes, you have this application.properties file. If you open this up, and you can see this is the same application.properties file you have written in your code editor, isn't it? This is the same application.properties file that you have written over here is going inside your jar. This file that we got, okay, this file is inside what? The boot.inf folder. How did we come to the boot.inf folder? From this, Hello Spring Boot 0.0.1 snapshot folder. How did we get that folder? We have uncompressed it. It was previously inside this. So this is the extracted version from this particular jar. So what I basically want to prove is that inside the boot.inf folder, we have the application.properties file. That means when we are creating a build out of our application, your application.properties file is zipped with the jar that you are basically building out of your application. So inside the target folder, the jar that you have, this is basically containing your source code, your dependency, and also this properties file that you are creating. Okay. So basically, whenever Spring Boot is going to bootstrap, first of all, it is going to see inside the jar, if you have a resources folder and you have a folder called config inside it, and if there is application.properties file present inside the config folder of the source main resources, or if you have directly placed the application.properties file inside the source main resources. Now there is another thing. Now if I'll come to this, if I'll remove this source main resources right now, this application.properties file, let me just do one thing. I will go over here and I will create a new folder, let's say, and the folder name is config. Okay, and I'll create it inside my project Hello Spring Boot. This is a config folder. Now I'll move this properties file to here, okay, to this config folder. Now tell me whether my application.properties file, where it is right now. It is inside the config folder. Is this config folder is part of your class path? No, this config folder is present inside your Spring Boot project. This project that you have, if you go into this, if you go to the properties, if you go inside this project, Hello Spring Boot, here you should have a config folder. It is not inside the source main resources or something. It is not inside the source folder. Okay, the config folder is not present inside the src or inside the class path. Now the thing is that if the application.properties file placed under a folder called config outside of the jar or outside of your source main resources folder, then will it be automatically detected? Let's see. If I'm gonna relaunch my application, and you can see your application has been started, and you can see the application is running in port number 9096. So you can go to the application.properties file, which is inside where? Which is inside the config folder. If you're going to change it to 9097 right now, and if you're going to relaunch it, this will also, you can see the effect right now. It started on port number 9097. So what do you got to understand right now? So the Spring Boot is also going to look for the application.properties file outside of your jar. Why I'm saying outside of your jar, you'll get to understand in a minute. So outside of your source main resources folder or outside of your class path also, the Spring Boot will search for the application.properties file if it is inside a config folder. If it is directly placed, not using a config folder, let's say right now I will just move this directly to this particular folder. You can see it is directly placed inside this particular project called Hello Spring Boot. Then also this application.properties file will be loaded. I can show you that if I will relaunch my application. I can see still it is loading the things. That means this application.properties file is also getting detected. Now you have to remember, whenever you're going to be package this particular project, this application.properties file will not be inside your jar file. I'm going to show you that. So let's say if I will, let's say I'm going to bring it to the config folder. Okay, so this config folder is inside the Hello Spring Boot project. First of all, let me just do a mav and clean. So let's just do a run as mav and clean. Okay, it is going to clean my target folder. So in my target folder right now, we should not have anything. So if I go to the properties and if I go to that folder location, okay, inside the target folder, we should not have anything. Can I delete everything here? And it's deleted. Now let's just create a fresh build. So I'll just do run as mav and install. Let it create the jar. Okay, it's created the new jar. Let's just go inside it. So let's just go inside the Hello Spring Boot project. Inside the target folder, I have this jar right now. So if I unzip this jar, if I go inside it, inside the boot.inf folder, I have classes. If I expand this, you can see I don't have any properties file here, unlike the last time. So my application.properties is right now not present inside this jar. It is not part of this jar. We have just unzipped this jar and we are just looking inside it. If you go and search for every folder, you won't be finding your application.properties file anywhere. So your application.properties file is not part of your jar right now. So basically the thing is that if you are running your application right here, if you're going to write directly running your application like this is going to work. If you're going to run like this, the port number 9097 is already on use. So let me kill this and let me relaunch it. If you're going to launch like this, it will work. It is going to detect that file automatically. The Spring Boot is detecting this particular file inside the config folder and configuring your application accordingly. But what about the jar that you have created if you're going to launch it directly? So for an example, if you're going to go to your folder and if you're going to go to the Hello Spring Boot, if you're going to open your terminal window right here, okay, and right now if you're going to do a ls, and if you're going to try to launch this particular jar, which is a fat jar, if you're going to launch it using the Java jar command, do a enter, it will fail. Okay, see the same exception. You can see for the my app class, the injection of the AutoWare properties is right now failing. So whenever the Spring Boot is starting right now, whenever we are starting this particular jar that we have called Hello Spring Boot jar, right now this jar does not have that properties file information. But inside this jar, we have that class. We have that class that we have written called myapp.java, right? And inside this myapp.java, this particular variable needing the properties from this particular property key. Right now, this key is not available in any of the properties file. So Spring Boot is failed to load this property information from any of the properties file because it doesn't find any properties file inside the source main resources. So how can we specify the properties information right now? So, okay, we can say right now, whenever we are running this jar, okay, let me just do a clear. Okay, whenever we are running this jar right now, we can say, okay, load this properties file from this location. And the location is spring.config.location. So this is a Spring Boot specific properties. Give a equals and specify your location right here. So right now my location is this application.properties file is inside the config folder. Copy the location directly, Control C. Okay, this file is present inside here, inside this config folder. So let me close it and I will go to my terminal window and I'll specify my location like this externally by using this particular properties, right? And if I'm going to do a enter here, now this is going to start fine. Okay, it is just saying failed to start because the port 9097 is already in use. Let me just close the port number so it can just restart this one more time and this will start good, and you can see your application name is Selenium Express ESTD 2015. So you have to be very careful. The name should be matching as application.properties file. If you're going to write x.property, y.property, it will not be automatically loaded. The name should be application.properties file. So it should not be only application.properties file. It can be also a YAML file also. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let me stop this application, and if I'll go to over here, if I'll delete this particular file, instead of a application.properties file, if I'll also create any YAML file. YAML is also another file format which is basically helping me for application configuration. And now if I'm going to write application and just the extension, you change it to YAML like this, or YAML file can also be written like this as an extension, YML, or you can write YAML as an extension. And if you're writing this and do a finish, it will create a application.yaml file. You can come over here and you can write server.port and you just write it like this and you just make it like 8085 right now. And you can see if I'll do Control S and if I'll start my application one more time right here, this application will be configured based on the application.yaml file that I have written over here. And you can see right now the Tomcat has started on port number 8085 and this YAML file is automatically loaded. Okay, so I'm about to complete the editing of this video, but yeah, I feel like I might talk a little bit about this YAML thing. So my microphone is not connected. You might find my voice and the camera quality not up to the mark, but that's fine. I think I just want to mention a couple of points because people might ask you this thing in interview, or you might yourself have this question. The question is, okay, so Abhilash, you told there are two different, file format that we have, either properties file or YAML file that we can use to configure or externalize properties in a Spring Boot application, and that's absolutely correct. But which one should I use? Should I use properties file or should I use YAML file format when it comes to a Spring Boot application? And the answer is you can use either of them. It is absolutely fine to either use properties file or YAML file. That's absolutely fine, but you have to go through your company standard. If they're using YAML format, you can go with the YAML. If they're using properties format, you can go with the properties file extension. Now the thing is that some people might ask you this question, okay, but what do you want to choose? Let's say I will make you an architect of a Spring Boot application. So what do you want to choose as an architect or a team lead? Either you want your people to code in properties file or in YAML file. And is there any performance benefit? The simple and straightforward answer to that, well, we do not have any performance benefit YAML over properties or properties over YAML. They all are same. Their purpose is also same. They do not have any performance benefit when it compares one with another. The another thing is that if you are very specifically going to any DevOps related thing, like if you are using Swagger, and if you're writing a Docker Compose file for your Docker application, there you have to understand that YAML has a little bit of edge over the properties file. The YAML file is very straightforward and is a JSON kind of language, right? And it is very easy to learn. And when it comes to any DevOps related tools like Docker or Swagger or OpenAPI, is very much likely, you can see a lot of YAML configuration over there. It is not really difficult to learn YAML. Or if you're very new to YAML, you can use just a converter. You can just go to online and you can just go for YAML to property converter. Okay, you can go to any of the YAML tool, YAML conversion tool, and you can see there is something written over here in YAML format. You can convert it to properties, and this is how it is going to look inside the properties format. You can just copy these things and you can copy and paste it in your Spring Boot application properties file, and it will work fine. Or if I'll just remove everything. Okay, right now I'm gonna write something in properties format. If I'm comfortable with properties, I'm choosing the properties over here, and you're gonna be seeing like how the same thing has been converted to the YAML. So for an example, I can write my app dot app name, and this is a Selenium Express, and I can say my app dot version, and let's say this is 1.0, and my app dot description, and let's say this is a learning management app, right? Let's say if I'm going to convert this to YAML. Okay, look at that, how simple it is. See, right here you are basically writing my app name, my app version, my app description, but the same thing has been converted to YAML, and look at the the way it has been written. My app has been only repeated once, like it has not been even repeated, sorry, this is just appearing one time. And then description, app name and version all belongs to the root my app. So you don't have to repeat like in properties file, my app name, my app version, my app description. It's very simple, right? You can just copy and paste it inside your YAML file, inside your Spring Boot project, and start loading the properties just like your properties file. The way we have seen examples for our properties file inside this particular video. So like that, you can just copy this thing, you can paste it inside a YAML file, and can try to load this particular properties in your Spring Boot application. Okay, and also you can just define any system specific properties. You can just write server, and you can just give a indentation like this in YAML, and you can come here and you can just write port, and let's say the port is 8080. Okay, and if you're going to convert the same to the properties file, you can say it is server.port equal to 8080. So the good thing is that if you want to define any other server related properties here in YAML, you can just come over here, server is the root, you can just write server.host, let's say host is 127.1.1.1. okay, if you're going to convert the same to the properties file, you're going to see you have again server.host, right? But here server, and under this I'm writing port and host. So here this root is not pretty much redundant the way we have it in the properties file. So the YAML has a little bit of edge when it comes to the comparison between the YAML and the properties file, but you can choose whatever you like. There is no performance benefit on YAML or properties, but YAML is just like a really cool language to learn because it's more like JSON and it's very easy and straightforward. And also, if you're watching this video as part of my paid Spring Boot series, or if you're taking any of my REST API course or Docker course or Swagger course, any of my backend development course, you can find a complete course on YAML, how to write YAML things. So before taking any of these courses, make sure that you are learning to write YAML files and how to create an array in YAML, what are the different syntaxes are there in YAML, what are the different concepts are there in YAML. Just learn about that a little bit. And if you're watching this video as part of my free YouTube videos, then yeah, no worries, I'll just try to make some of the sessions on YAML pretty soon in the near future. Alright guys, that's it for this video. In the next video, I'm going to be telling you two beautiful things. The first thing is, what is the importance of Spring Boot starter parent? You might have explored some of the importance of the Spring Boot starter parent, but in the next video, we're going to be exploring how the Spring Boot starter parent is basically managing different versions for you. And also, we're going to be understanding some cool features of this starter parent or this starter web MVC dependency that we have inside the pom.xml file. And trust me, it is doing a lot of variety things for you that we haven't explored yet. and we're going to be doing that in the next video. So till I upload the next video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, follow me in Insta, follow my Facebook page, and also join my Facebook group to ask me questions and to interact with me. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, bye bye, take care, and happy coding.